picking up the markets right here. I just started the video. Futures just opened up 6 o'clock, and we opened up into a divergence, so I wanted to actually record this segment here. I was going to do a little after-hour research, do some trading if we have a good setup. Futures are just opened up at 6 o'clock, and you can actually see that green arrow. This is a rock bot that you're looking at on the chart here. The rock bot is a auto trader, a bot, trades the markets versus, that's scripted. We have a long, short, 5-minute super signals, flags, everything. But this is the best bot right here. And right now it's following it up with a trailing stop. So I usually have this running at night on DayTraderRadio.com, and then during the day we have it it's on the members channel. It's a special rockbot channel located at DayTraderRadio.com, and you could also get the script too that runs this if you have, or you could use this on any NinjaTrader account. The script, and it would auto trade for you. So I'll let this run today. As you can see, it's market here popped up here. Now it has a trailing stop here. So if it gets down there, it'll already lock in the money. It's following up by I believe 8 ticks or 2 points. It's set on the ES right now, but you could trade this. You could trade the MES. I might even show you the MES afterwards. And that's it. So futures are opened up. They're just down minus 2.25 right now. Minus 2.25. Bill Jar here looks like he's in the room taking a short here. Oh, the other thing I wanted to do actually is I'll let this play out. It's starting to move here. Another thing I want to work out today is the after-hour movers, after-hour stock. So I could use this post-market watch list. Pops up after hours, and we get to see what's running here. Just to fill in here. Where is you? Where are you? Where could you be? I think it's just post-market. Let's try that again. That's under search. Sometimes I have to restart this. I want to try restarting this right now because I think that might be an issue. We'll go back to the ES here for a second. Do you see? Market looking pretty strong. All right, well, now it should pop up here. This is a new feature the TC2000 has on their charts, automatically popping up there. There we go. So I know there's always something moving post-market. So let's take a look at some of these. It goes by a percentage gain right now. KTOVW, and we're going to go to the 5-minute because we're going to look at the you can see there was a little move up here. It did go from 17 cents to 23 cents. That is a big percentage move. So I'm just going to go through some of these. Young Bong. I'm not saying that's Chinese, but I have a suspicion it is. Barnwell Industries. Not much going on there. Translate Bio. Do we have a move in tops? The shipping stocks here seem to be acting pretty good. Here we have something that's moving up here. OCGN. OCGN is definitely the runner after hours. 31 cents. Someone mentioned it on Twitter. and gave it that pop. So again, this is the Robinhood crew affecting these cheap stocks, and it continues to push here. Who knows where it's going to open up tomorrow? Really, who really knows? It's pulling back here to 31 cents. I'm sure there's no news on it. Just someone mentioned it and got out there. Take a look at some other one. Right now, that looks like the potential runner of the evening. That's about it. I had, Dell came out with some news with thinking of spinning off VMware, I believe it was. VMware, they said it was a $40 billion valuation on VMware. And that had VMware, Dell, everything popping here. Workhorse, WKHS. I am in that still. We picked that up yesterday. And it for after everything is said and done, it actually held up pretty good today. Did
Order
not
filled.
really sell off.
Order canceled.
All right, that might have been the trailing stop. So the trailing stop came in here, locked it in, and basically the trade is finished there. All right. So starting back on that video, the other thing I wanted to discuss in this video is, even though we're getting some great trades in our swing trades, overnight momentum trades, the intraday trades have been perfectly lined up. And now I haven't really, I've been focused more on stocks and option trading, short-term momentum, scalping, everything else, and I have not been focused on the futures. So I decided to come in today. I said, well, what I can tell you, what I do each day is actually map out the markets to you. So if we do come down to an area, I'll mark it off. I'll mark it off as it's happening, explain where it should go from there, and we'll come back and we can look at that. And basically the last 2 days, or at least since Sunday evening, the market has given us textbook examples of patterns, what we call high probability setups. Now, high probability setups are, again, a set of indicators. We have 5 indicators we're working with. And when 3 or more of those indicators line up, and stochastics, divergences count as a big part of that. That's actually our foundation indicator. The stochastics are our foundation indicator. The divergence setup is a high probability setup. And when we add other things to that, like trend lines on a divergence, or reversal candlesticks on a divergence, or anything else that we recognize as an indicator that we use, then we really want to take those trades. And that's what I want to focus on going forward, is just taking that really tight criteria of only the best of the best trades. Sometimes you get a trend line, but it's much better when you have a divergence on a trend line, or you have a reversal candle on the trend line, or the trend line crosses or hits the VWAP at the same exact time. So if you have that, and you have a trend line and a VWAP and a reversal candle, then you're talking, even better stuff. And yes, it is live. Stunno, it is live. So I just want to go back and show you some of the trades that you should have jumped on, and just realize every setup is just, it has to fall into the criteria. If the criteria matches, I want to mark it off. If it didn't work, you're going to know that. If it did work, you're going to see it over and over and over how well these things work. And you need that sometimes to build the confidence to place the trades and where to start. Now you could trade all these setups on the MES. Like tonight, I have my MESs ready to go. If we have a setup, I'll take them. Or you could do the ES, or you could run the same patterns and same setups on any of the products, even stocks or anything you're trading. What we use some of the more liquid contracts like the ES or the MES or the NQ, the YM, etc. So Starting off at 6 o'clock p.m. Sunday, the market pushed higher. And once we started to establish a first pivot here, we usually at the beginning of the week, that low here, you start working off of some pivots like that. Now you could say, oh, this is a pivot and this is a pivot. You'll start to know, over time you get the experience, and you're kind of at the point where you're letting these markets play out. And here you have, here you have the market going up here. Let's pretend we're playing this back. And and we just got to this level, and we noticed that there is a definite change of direction, and that's what a pivot is. A pivot is a change of direction, and the criteria for this actually is to break out of the short-term trend that you're in. So usually these are underlying channels or patterns, and the pivots are the areas where these patterns break down. So we have a major pivot here, and we have a major pivot here. So that's why we were able to take two major pivots and draw that underlying trend line in there. I'm not even worried about that top one, but what I'm worried about is this underneath one. This is a great pivot area right there. So then we could extend that. What I always want to do is extend those lines. All right. Now, a lot of times, if there is news, a trend line will be broken. But because of the size and and how the pivot looks, depending on maybe there's news, maybe there's something out there, maybe there's an algorithm, sometimes you'll flush these levels. But that trend line, because of the size of those pivots and how well that looks, even if we break down through it, if the price comes back up to it in any way, we want to continue to respect that trend line and trade off of it. Now, so this is an important indicator right now. This trend line is an established trend line. It continues to move higher, even if we break down through it once. Now, if this was a divergence here, I would say, yeah, buy the trend line. But we're looking for more than one indicator. This, you might say, why didn't you buy off of here? Because I'm looking for 3 or more indicators to line up. 3 or more indicators to line up. The only thing we have here is basically a trend line. All right. So now we broke down through here. Nothing going on here. I'm going to zoom in a little just so we can get a better picture here. Here we are. We're right here. We came back up to the trend line. I remember I was here this morning at 7 o'clock, so we were able to actually point this one out. I said, watch the retracement here. This is the perfect divergence. Now, the perfect divergence for us is having that second higher high underneath that 80 line. That second high, so you have that. You definitely have that that lower high versus the higher high here, and that really was the setup. Now at that point right there, you either have your bot recognizes that, it'll throw in the trade, or you see that you want to take it and you're throwing in the trade. You put your stop one tick above that candlestick high. You could actually see that the reason we're looking at this is the combination of the reversal candle, the trend line, the pivot area, which is also an indicator, pivot is support and resistance pivot, and I just mentioned the divergence. I mean, there was multiple things right here calling for a pullback. So that is a HPS setup, and as you can see, we broke right back down. We actually, now that we broke down from this underlying channel here, you see this underlying channel here, now we've broken a series channel. This becomes its own pivot, and now we're able to drop this channel line from this line here. And actually, it was a very good one up on the top. It just met from that first peak down to that second one. You probably could even made an argument and said this is the trend line, because it was pretty good. It was a pretty decent trend line there. So we pulled all the way back down, and at that point, I'm just looking at where am I looking at some stuff here. So at that point, we started to get a bounce, and I placed another trend line that went from the low to that, but just to see what would look like. And I start putting the big pivots in. I start riding those trend lines, because every time the price comes back to it, I want to make sure there's no other indicators lining up. Now, you had one here. You have a rising trend line because of that one and the previous one, and you had the VWAP. The VWAP is one of the strongest lines on your chart. So, if anything lines up with the VWAP, like a regular trend line or a divergence plus a reversal candle, becomes an HPS setup. Now, it's not a divergence, but it's an HPS because you have one indicator is a reversal candle, takes out the previous candles, usually a 30-day range on those candles. 30 period range, I should say. I mean, it goes back if you could take out the last 30 candles low, you're looking good. Plus you have the VWAP, plus you have this rising trend line. So that's 3 indicators right there that represents a good opportunity. You also see the stochastics are down here, and they're all kind of a triple stochastic buy signal. And from that point on, you moved up. Now what we're seeing here is you have this underlying trend line from these 2 pivots, and you have this rising trend line, which was were perfect, and we're starting to see the makings of a rising wedge pattern. Rising wedge pattern, out of all the patterns I pay attention to, it's mostly channels and wedges. Mostly channels and wedges. The wedge pattern is a great pattern to just follow. Easy to call some of these. Sometimes we know that if we look at we zoom out here and we look at the angle of a wedge pattern, which will come over time. It has, I'm not pulling out the protractor, but it has that kind of 45-degree angle to it. It's a steeper trend line. It's not a shallow rising wedge here. We want to have a little steepness to it. So you're compressing itself, and then right at this level, it's not the 50% mark, it's the 65 to 75% mark. We tend to break out of that channel. And I always say it, and you can see right here again, if you marked it off, that's it. Now, interesting that I look back at here, some levels I might have been doing other things. We are starting to see it chop around here, making a series of kind of lows here, almost a double bottom low here. And the stochastics here kind of pushed a little higher than the 20 on that and on the 14.3. I think we mentioned it. I think we mentioned this at that point right here, that it was a divergence. What time is that? Let's see here. It's 2 o'clock. I'm going to look at, there was also something else I wanted to see here. Now, a good point to remember is, let's take a look at the, I don't know if it caught it or not. Oh yes, it did. Here it is. So we go back to 2 o'clock. If you're not sure if it's a divergence or not or anything here, here's the rock buy identifying this as a divergence. So this is exactly that same time. I was just talking about this, and here it was, rock bot long, and it moved up and it just trailed it up. So that was actually that time. And that's another great reason to have that rock bot channel helping you identify these levels. And you might not see it. I don't see. That's the reason I built this here, is so I don't miss the these setups. I don't want to miss them. I want to get up in the middle of the night and see a divergence like this. This one's at 2 o'clock, but the ones that happen overnight, I want to be able to, in a perfect world, that is. In a perfect world, if I could get up on that one, I wouldn't wake up the house. So we had that divergence here, and it was also a rock bot setup. So just to kind of let you know, maybe we'll just put a circle there representing that rock bot setup. Now we continue to move up higher, and what do we see here? We see a retracement trend line. If we extend that, and we push up here, and we also have a double top. I'm not even looking at the stochastics. I'm just trying to throw in some lines here. So this double top here, it looks like a textbook area here. Reversal candle, retracement of the trend line. But I'm not seeing any, I'm not seeing any divergence there at all. Well, actually, it was a great divergence. Oh, this divergence was so good that, you see where that high is, that double top high? Look at the stochastics down here. They curled over way down here. We're talking about I wasn't even noticing how weak that stochastic rollover is. The steeper stochastics versus the price here, that was an extreme divergence plus reversal. So that was actually a really good divergence, textbook divergence. And again, show me a divergence, and I will show you the market moving in a direction. And this was kind of a divergence back over here. After time, you'll realize that price came very close to that high. Stochastics never got back above the 80. You would expect that to happen. and that ends up being a divergence also, and it led to this big pullback, which led to a buy divergence, which led to the sell divergence, which led to a trend line, which was and now I know I'm all over the place here, but this is good stuff. This trend line here, where do you think that trend line came from? All right, let's take a look here. I don't even know if I could see. I'm getting blind here. All right, so you have a wedge pattern here. A wedge pattern's a moving, excuse me, everything's going moving. A measured move out of a wedge pattern is basically a channel. So you take that top of a rising wedge channel or a wedge pattern, you take the top trend line on top of the pattern, you clone it, and you drop it to the low pivot at the beginning of that wedge pattern. That's the one right here. You drop that. So if I clone that, boom, and then drop it right at the bottom there, it'll land right there on that one. And sure enough, where did we come down to? Where the hell did we just come down to? Multiple, every single setup here would have been I mean, none of them really even gave you any heat. I mean, these things are exact. This is greatness happening. All right, and there it is. That was actually, I believe, that was like Monday. That was just Monday. And then today, overnight, again, that's when Navarro came out talking about the China deal being squashed. And we bounced all the way back up. We actually got a divergence here. And I'm not even paying attention to that last night. I was in bed getting ready to come to work the next day. But that was a nice divergence there on that bounce. And then really just went sideways. There was a nice pullback here, but this kind of went sideways until about 2 o'clock Tuesday, 2 o'clock in the morning. Maybe that was the 2 o'clock. Let's see here. Maybe that was, no, that wasn't it. That was the next day. So that was the Tuesday. That was that Tuesday. All right. So that was Tuesday here. So that was the Tuesday. That was 2 o'clock. That was the 2 o'clock divergence we were just showing. I thought that was from yesterday, but let me get my screen back up here. Losing it, Johnny. All right. So that was that divergence right there. I just want to make sure. And what was the other time frame, just to see? So I didn't. Probably some short ones on there we could go back and look at too. This one wasn't. This is one that you would have to identify. I would have to help you identify that one. I thought there was one around 2 o'clock in the morning. What was I looking at before? All right. Well, anyway, where did we leave off? That divergence right there, then sideways chop, and then that divergence that the Rockbot identified, and a huge move off of that. I don't know where this gap came from. I must have to do a backfill on that. This was beautiful. This was a steep divergence, topping pattern, steep divergence. Look at how it rolled over here, way underneath that 80. New highs, this started to curl over. That's your first sign. What's the rule? Divergence, stop one tick above. Multiple contracts are the best after your first target, which could be anything depending on your whatever vehicle you're trading, if it's the MES or the ES. I would say, depending on the market conditions, if it's overnight, after hours, you might not get the moves. Maybe you're going to get 2 to 4 points. It really depends. You get into that. You kind of get into a feel for it also. But you definitely, the chances of getting the directional move in the direction of divergence is very high. In this case, almost 100%. Here you have a falling wedge pattern. It's one of my favorite setups. This looks like it was at 5 o'clock and a little low. I wonder if it picked this one up because it was a little choppy here. But let's see here. I'm looking at that candle. It's just took out the lows here. And back here with you. Question in the room: what time frames are your stochastics? I use a series of stochastics. The top is the fastest, which is the 9-period stochastic. The second one is a 14, 40, and a 60. Now the 60, it's a 60-10. I keep these kind of, just kind of hidden, not really hidden, but hidden, just to make sure people try to make an effort to understand stochastics a little bit more. All that work I put into, combining these. It's been a process over years of testing and back testing and trading and seeing the different way that these things work together, and understanding the time frames and the moving averages. Everything coming from George Lane originally, and using his methodology. So that is, it's an amazing thing. As you can see, the object is to get into a trade and get out and make money, not worrying about even what the trade is about in some cases. This is ideal. I mean, this would be perfect. If you're a robot and you could take these trades, you'd probably do quite well. There are times that these are not foolproof. I mean, when you have a great setup like here, what happened to that? That just disappeared. I don't know if I moved. I think it was here. Let's pull back here. This was a nice pullback. You see the two candles, kind of a nice big candle reversal. When we talk about reversal candles as being an indicator, to classify that reversal candle, I like it to take out the previous candles, and I'd also like to have the body or the tail twice as big as the body. Sometimes you'll have the big body, big green body, and the tail, but in this case we have a very small body and the tail is much bigger. So those here's a big long tail. The body, I can't have to zoom in and take a look at the body, but the longer the tail, the bigger the tail, usually the better it flushes out, takes out those prices, and closes on the highs. With a divergence, it's usually a great sign and a big move coming. So there was a great one here at 7 o'clock. There was kind of another one here, right here. It's kind of a micro one. Never got under the 20 in the first place. It kind of popped and then dropped quickly, but never dipped back under the 20. It was officially a divergence, but it was a fast one, and then chopped around sideways before exploding here, probably on some kind of news. Now this was an old trend line that we've been tracking from all the way back here. This is where our original trades, and this trend line here still acting good. So I'm watching that trend line and I'm saying, all right, market opened up. There's a lot of volatility in the market here between 9 and 10:30, and these levels get broken sometimes. So we chopped around it. We actually came down to the VWAP, popped back up, held it, and then again, watch what's happened. We're holding it again. We're holding it again. See how it's getting a little tighter, and then we held it again. Not seeing any really good setups here. There was a kind of a divergence here at 10 o'clock. Let me see if the bot picked that one up or not. It was kind of a tight one here. Let me see. 10 o'clock. Let's go. I have the bot actually running live now, so if anything triggers. There was one here at 4:30, a nice one. 4:30. We'll come back to that one. 4:25. What time am I looking for? The 8 o'clock one. 6 o'clock one. There was a nice one. 6 o'clock. Look at that, right here. Look at the big move up. Profit hit. Profit hit. Profit hit. So 4:30 and 6 o'clock. Let's just start with those. 4:30 and 6 o'clock. So 4:30, you can't even actually see that one here. Right before 4:30 was one right here. And then 6 o'clock came in with a little divergence here. Oh, I see it. I just didn't even notice it. We didn't get to the 7 o'clock, but there was kind of a higher stochastic here as we put in a nice reversal candle. So that's the one that triggered there. But I'd rather, probably would not take that one because it was very hard to read that. Mathematically, it was a good divergence. but it was so close to, that look. This was a little bit better with this reversal candle. That was at a little after 7, looks like 7:10. Let me just double check here. It might not even got that. Sometimes the, didn't get that. It might have been off. I don't know. Let's go back here. This is the real-time charts right now. All right, so it's a fast little dip. And the market coming back down and chopping around again from that trend line. And again, just hanging out, doing some research, waiting for the right setup, measuring these out. And again, it's great just to be in front of the markets waiting for this. You don't have to, you could come here, listen to the show, watch the markets live. And then when the setups are there, you just got to, you got to strike. Here's a nice divergence right here, a nice move up to a sell side divergence, to a nice move down and a trend line retracement. Perfect. This was absolutely golden. Very steep divergence here. Not this one. That's the buy side divergence. But this sell side divergence right here was perfect. From this high to this spike high. Went up to resistance 1. Now with that big move down, we have a new pivot. And now we have a 1, 2, 3 pattern. And once you have 3 good pivots here, we have 1 pivot here from moving up to down. We have 1 pivot here from moving down to up. And then we have 1 pivot here. So there's 3 pivots. We see these all the time. All we have to do is draw the trend line here on top, make a parallel trend line, just drop it there parallel. It's going to set itself up, and then watch it as it trades. Now, this one started to see some selling at the end of the day, so I wouldn't put too much into the close here because we did see some selling into the close with trade imbalances and short covering and et cetera, et cetera. So I wouldn't put too much into that last channel here. What I'm looking for is any divergence, really. That's my key setup there, the key setup. So right now, we're back here with the markets live, and we're down 8 points. And I just wanted to point that out. Every day, we could walk you through the markets. That's what I want to do. Walk you through the markets. This is not a bad divergence here, actually. You have a 40-10 divergence. You can see the slight upside here. This is actually not a bad divergence. I might actually take this one. Oh, it's already starting to move. It's a 40-10 divergence. It's almost a 60-10 divergence, which means it would be a 5-minute divergence. And I am going to look at the SPY chart because the SPY is trading around the clock. Let's see if we could actually see the 5-minute SPY. If it gives us that divergence. We might not. Well, we might, actually. Yeah, here it is. You see these two triangles here? This is a divergence setup. This is a 9-3 and a 14-3 trigger divergence. You can barely see the candle there. Took out the lows. It was already grinding higher. But it's not, not every trade needs to be taken. I'd wait for the quality ones. You'll know the good ones. You'll know the combinations. I like any type of divergence into a pattern or a wedge pattern, or the buy side divergence or sell side divergence, in lined up with a trend line or a recognizable pattern. This one does look good on the 60-minute time frame. Just get on into NOVN here, after hours Momo play, momentum trade going into tomorrow. We'll see if there's any news on it. I just doing some scans here. So it's up here on the upper left-hand corner. I want to just take a look at the other chart here. Showed up on it's up 30%. 105 million shares. All right, let's take a look here. It's pretty good. And the time is, we have about 15 minutes to go in that trade. So you can see it's moving up here. Probably going to start to pick up some volume here. I don't know, can you trade after hours on Robinhood platforms and stuff like that? You know, not all of these platforms you're able to do that, but this is where you want to be able to position yourself if you're hanging out around 8 o'clock when overnight, you know, after hours stock trading ends at 8 o'clock. And the ones that are usually grinding up usually push into that level. It's all in. You know, everyone's like running for the door to get on the train. Tomorrow you get up at 4 o'clock. Maybe you get some movement in this. Maybe it goes to 70 cents. Maybe it goes higher. All right, let's take a look at the MES here. It's still pushing higher. Still got that going for me. Let's see what we're up to here. All right, there goes NOVN here, pushing a little higher, 63 coming up. See the volume here starting to lift here? The volume starting to lift. It'd be great if they squeeze this to like 70 cents right now. Okay, so we're just closing out the NOV, and not closing out, but closing out the after-hour session here. Coming about 3 minutes to go. Seeing how this NOVN is going to close up. Again, remember these stocks actually, you can start trading these at 4 in the morning. So it does. It usually does get its move early in the morning. So it's sometimes you get up at 8, 9 o'clock, wander into your, turn on the computer, and the thing has been up and down. How many times does that happen to me? So many times. I mean, you really have to, really have to step up, to be successful in the market. You got to do the extra work, extra effort to get up, beat everyone else who's getting up in the morning, selling it to them, instead of them selling it to you. We're up 68,000. I'm looking for a spike here over 100,000. I wonder if that could be a good carnival game. We didn't get up there. Let's see here. There's only 2 minutes left here. We got over 50,000. That's a big call here to make that. I don't know if we're going to be able to do that. Well, I'm going to finish the video, send that out, and we'll continue to trade tonight. continue to track the market. Excuse my gravelly throat. It's been a long day talking here. Here we go, a little pop here. We just started off at a candlestick. We have 56 seconds left in this candle. This could be it. We have 52 seconds left in this candle, 49. I wonder if I could bring up the indicator. Candlestick timer. Candlestick. I don't know where it is. I don't want to mess with the. I don't want to mess the move here. I want to just use the. It's 10 seconds left in the candle. And it's 8 o'clock. It is done. And you can see that actually the future spiking here a little, 8 o'clock. So lots of times we'll start seeing some news coming out of Asia at this time between 8 and 9 o'clock. We will see some Asian news being released. And around the world, markets continue to get ready to open up. Well, so that's all she wrote here, NOVN here. Closing near the highs. I will send this video out. Hope you enjoyed that. DayTraderRadio.com. Get it all.